I'm Joe Dillette, owner of the Carving Shop. Today is April 9th, 2020, and I'm excited to tell you about a new optical comparator that I invented. It's very easy for you to make one for yourself, so I'd like to show you how. So, first of all, what is an optical comparator and how is it going to help? Well, for an artist, for myself, when I wanted to enlarge something, to reduce something, I had a pattern and I wanted to do a copy of it, I used basically 4 methods of doing it. And one of the methods was a grid system. The grid system was I had the model and I decided how big I wanted to make it. In this particular case, this model, if I wanted to expand it to 2 foot high, 24 inches, I make a grid where the 24 inches is right at the top of his head. And then the same size squares, so your grid is universal, looking from the top down from each of the different directions. And from here, by looking in, I can see that the nose is at about 17 inches high, and where the brim of the hat is, and where I can locate the features that way. And it'll give me a readout in inches because of the scale I've got drawn. This is another one, the Blessed Mother, that I'm working on, that's going to end up being 23 inches high. So again, it has a different scale. So the grid size is different, and there again I can locate the features off of it. So that is using the grid system. This optical comparator will replace that. This is another interesting contraption. It's called a pointer. And a pointer was used to do Mount Rushmore. This is normally used for larger objects. It has a very stable base put on, so this bolts to a very stable base, very good quality, and it creates a stable point out in space. So you adjust this where you are measuring, and that determines where that point is in space, and you transfer that over to the object that you're making. Another method is a pantograph. And a pantograph is just a mechanical device that's got a hookup like this that will reduce or enlarge an object. So if, like where my hand is here, if that was your pencil and you're moving that, let's say, into a circle, this point here is making a smaller circle. You could also put the pencil in this and go like this, and this is making a smaller circle, so it reduces the size of your pattern. So it's a way of transferring the drawing. And the ratio that it will do that is dependent on where you set the pins for its mechanical movement. So that's a pantograph. A fourth method that I use, and I use this pretty often, it is like a divider, but it's got a pivot point. And the pivot point has 2 points here on the bottom and here. So these are sharp points that I can adjust where this pivot is to adjust the ratio of this. So in other words, this distance being smaller than this, and whatever that ratio is determined by where I position that pivot point. And so I can enlarge and reduce with this. So this is a kind of a handy device that you can quickly do it without a lot of mathematics. And it's quite stable. It's very accurate because it's got the sharp points. So this optical comparator that I'm going to show you, you have almost everything available to you. If you have a smartphone, if you have a computer, a tablet, a copy machine, a regular inkjet copier, the cheap kind, those are the basic things. All you need to really buy then is the transparency, which is the transparent film. You get the transparency that is used for inkjet printer. It's got a little bit of texture on one side that will accept the ink from the inkjet printer. You can write on it with ballpoint also. Okay, you just take a picture of the object that you want to make a pattern of. You take that object as it's displayed on your camera, and you take, this is just a small piece of the transparency, and you can feel the difference in the side. The side that is without the texture is very slick, and the other side, it grabs the finger a little bit more. You can place that right on here, and then you can trace the pattern. What I've got here is image of the chick right on the transparency. Here is a simple holder that I built. It's a couple pieces of wood. One is adjustable here, and the angle is adjustable just by loosening this bolt. And this here helps hold the iPhone, the tablet, or the computer in. And I just clamp that to the table, or you could clamp it to your tripod, clamp it to anything. And what I want to do now is take that chick that we just took a picture of, transfer it on a larger scale. The smartphone clamps in, and I leave the lens so it goes to the side here. And I can clamp this phone in this position also. I can move that down, clamp it in here. I can also clamp this tablet in. So I could use either the tablet or the iPhone for doing this transfer. One of the important things is to set the angle on this, the same angle that you're copying. So I match the angle that I have to the easel, and then I tighten it up. But I'm not putting any pressure on here. I'm drawing it on here. So now I've got the same angle, matching the angle. But I'm going to use my smartphone. So you mount it so the lens of the camera is free from the frame. Then you turn the camera on. And I just take a little piece of tape. This is the transparency that has the chick drawn on it with the ballpoint pen. I use the blue tape so I don't get the adhesive of the tape sticking to the phone. This is a painter's tape. Then I mount the paper on the drawing board. So by adjusting the distance of the drawing board away from the camera is how we control the size. So the other thing I did is I've got 4 reference points. And the reason why I use 4 is that's going to make sure that the angle is not going to change. So the first thing I will do is I will locate the reference points. But let me show you something here before we trace this out. One of the problems that I had was in the transferring of the image, I couldn't see the end of the pencil very well. So I took a piece of paper here. I made a little white dot by making a round black circle around it like a bullseye, and I positioned that right over where the lead is. Now I can see this easily when I'm drawing here. I'm looking at that white dot, and as I'm coming around, I am keeping that white dot in the center of the line, that ballpoint line that I drew on that transparency. So let's determine the size first. So this is going to be the bottom, and this will be the top. So that's the size of the chick, and I don't want it that big, so let's make it smaller. All right. Now I'll move up. This is the bottom of the chick, and that is the top of the head. And so that's about the good size. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to locate these 4 reference points. So now I can move the camera. Using my Kindle, I'm going to show you a little bit more about transferring this image. The lens is right over here, so that's why I have it centered on the paper there. And I can look at my pen with that little white dot on the end, and I can trace the nose of this cat. One of the things I should put in is the reference points, and I'll put the reference points right here into the ears, getting the eyes, so I have that white dot just splitting the line. I'm using my new optical comparator to take this pattern that I got approved. This is the top of a high altar that's going to be carved in marble. And it's 8 foot by 2 foot, and Michael the Archangel stands over the top. This is going to be done in 2 sections, 2 4-foot sections, and so I'm going to use my new optical comparator to create the pattern. I took this approved drawing and I put it in the inkjet printer, and I made transparency copies, and the transparency copies then will go on my computer screen, and the camera is way up there coming down on the tripod, and I can stand right here and do the drawing. So I'll have my computer sitting on the table, and then this is the drawing. So this is a 4-foot rule, and the paper I have is 4 foot, so the drawing will go right all the way across, and that will be one side, and then I'll do it again for the other side. So the first thing, I can't see this dot, it's too small, put the camera that far away, so I'm going to create another dot that I can see on the camera. So I'm looking at the camera here, and I'm going to create the dot. That's a little bit too big, so I'll start making it smaller. A little bit smaller. There, I can see that pretty good. So now I'm going to put that on the end of my pencil right above the lead. I'm going to just take a number 2 pencil and tape this dot on the end. I'm using this 4-foot rule, looking at it on here and trying to square it up with the camera right now. So the 4 foot is from this point to the center. That's the center point. So I have to put that on the screen, and I'm going to switch the screen. It's to full size. So I have to enlarge it on the screen, so I'm going to lower the camera down. That is about perfect. Okay, so I'm going to tape the pattern onto the screen, and I'm lining up the bottom right along here. So what I did is I put 2 dots on the paper, way down the other end in here. So the dots are 4 foot apart. And that's going to be my reference. They're in line, and that'll be my bottom line. So when I locate this, I will locate the 1 dot I see right there. I'm going to put that corner right on that dot, and I'm going to bring this down. So that dot is sitting right in this center line right now. So right where that 4 foot mark is. So now with the camera steady, I can move my computer around, but I can start the tracing. The top of it, this will be the top. I'm seeing if I can see the dot. I see the dot on my pencil, and that'll be the top going across. And the radius then will start. I can move the computer all over. move the computer down just a little bit more so I can see this. Right here is where the radius is going to start, an arc coming down. Alright, I'm making sure that my two reference dots are staying lined up coming across here. And I'm going to start tracing the angel. So I'm going to start with the face of the angel, the head. And so I'm just looking for my bullseye on my pen. Okay. And so I'm watching the screen as my pencil is moving on the paper. This is also a very valuable tool for checking your work. So I have a different face on here, but if I wanted to put this face on, then what I would do is I would take a picture of it. Then from the picture, I would print it out on the transparency. And first what I did is I printed some copies to check the size. I wanted to do a black and white. I did the black and white here on the transparency. So I cut it out. I took a pen and I drew over the lines to create the definition of where the features are. Then I'll tape it onto my cell phone. So now I can match up the eyes are what's going to be my reference, and I want to get the proportions right. So the thing that I need to balance is the cell phone this way and this way, just to see where the reference is. So I line the eyes up on the carving, and I line the chin up, the bottom of the chin. So I'm seeing the eyes, and I'm seeing the chin. And now I can see where the sides of the head are, and I see that if I was going to be doing this, I can look at different places, like I need to adjust in the side here because I got a broader jaw and a little bit more smaller on the mouth, and the nose needs to be modified a little bit. Also the hairline too. So I can see the differences and I can compare the features. So I could put a face on here off of a picture by using this method with the transparency. To do a sign layout, this is a very easy tool to use. So I just do a layout on the computer. I take my cell phone and I just take a picture of it. Then I will print that picture off on the transparency. I'm going to change the paper size to 4x6. That will reduce it small enough to where that layout will fit on my screen. The transparency is printing now. Just take and cut the layout out. Turn my cell phone on. Position this on the screen, my transparency. Tape it in place. Take the board that I'm going to use, and now I can lay the size out the way I want. I can center it on the board, and I can just take my pencil and draw. So here I locate the center of that board and I center this on there, and now I can position where the ends of it is and continue with my drawing, get my drawing. So I can adjust the height, center it, and put any layout that I want. Use it any size. So if I want the letters larger, I back it up here and I can draw. So it would help if this was mounted solid in that holder that I had built. By setting up a remote cam on the object, and if you had the transparency right on your computer, so you could have the computer right next to where you're working, the cam is taking the picture, and as you're working you can see how close you're coming to the edge of features. As an optical comparator, I think it has many possibilities. Most people have an inkjet printer and they've got a computer, and a camera isn't that expensive. The transparencies, paid $9 for 24 sheets. You have to get the ones that print inkjet printer, and you can always also write with a ballpoint pen on it. And that works out to be about 38 cents a piece. Using it as a tool to check your work, to create patterns, pattern in a book that you want to copy, just either trace it or take a picture, reduce it down. You can go out to a barn out there, take a picture of the barn, come back to do a relief carving of the barn. So of doing portraits of people, landscapes from outside, enlarging, reducing, this optical comparator has a lot of possibilities. Thank you.